Hello, good evening and welcome to Matchday Live. The Imps travelling to Portman Road to face Ipswich Town, looking for back-to-back wins, I should say, in League One. It was a brilliant win the other night against Crewe Alexandria, wasn't it? We'll be dissecting through the best goals you'll see so far in League One this season on tonight's show. We're also giving away this a brand new Lincoln City women's shirt. You can see the sponsorship there. Oh, let me hold it properly. Paget and Crone as well. The question to win this shirt this evening is who scored the winner when the Imps played Ipswich Town at the LNER Stadium 4 months ago. Who scored the winner? Leave your comments below in the usual places, and I'll pick a winner. I'll get Gary Hutchinson to pick a winner before the end of the show. Of course, we'll also be bringing you the team news live at 6 o'clock this evening, and we'll be speaking to an Ipswich Town fan later on in the show as well. Let's bring in Gary Hutchinson then. Gary, nice to see you. Tonight feels like a big opportunity, doesn't it? There's some big games taking place.
There are indeed. Yeah, it is a great opportunity for us, not only to extend the lead over Ipswich and probably kind of end our hopes of finishing above us, but we know that teams around us are going to drop points without a doubt. There's some massive games. What I would say is, whilst it's a big opportunity, I think it's also a game without pressure. And I know that I may get some criticism for saying that, but we know some teams around us are going to drop points. I always say you need 2 points per game. We won on Saturday. If we were to win this Saturday as well, it makes tonight a free hit.
Paul Cook's first home game in charge as well, Gary. We'll be talking about him. We'll actually be hearing from the Ipswich Town manager later on in the show as well. Very good manager indeed. I know you agree. How much of a boost is it to Ipswich to have him in charge, and how much could that affect us this evening?
Well, it's a great starting point for them. I will say that. I've been highly critical of Paul Lambert. I feel a little bit for Marcus Evans. I think he's a decent owner, but he kind of shuns the limelight. What he needs is a manager who is going to take control, who is going to put some structure in place at the club between the hierarchy and himself. And I think Paul Cook can do that. He's got proven track record. Obviously, he's won promotions with Portsmouth, with Wigan, I think with Chesterfield as well. So he's a really good manager. What I would say is a starting point. He has a squad which is to a degree broken. It's talented, but it's broken. There's a lot of work for him to do. I'm not sure it's going to be the same sort of manager bounce that we saw with Lee Johnson. I think there's a longer sort of task to be done. So it remains to be seen.
Before we look back at that Crewe game, Gary, let's just have a look at the League One table then. I mentioned before, didn't I, that Hull are playing Peterborough this evening. Ipswich, they're lying in 8th. You'd think that the automatic places, they are certainly above them. You only need to look at the table to know that. But 12 points, even with a game in hand, it's quite the difference to make up, isn't it?
It's a big difference, yeah. 12 points required from 15 games, so that's a 12-point swing. Is absolutely huge. And if we were to continue our current run of let's say 1.8 points per game, it makes it very, very difficult for Ipswich. But it's been such an unusual league, and there are a lot of teams, some not even in that top 8, who are going to have a big say. Blackpool, for instance, on a great run of form. Burton on a great run of form as well. So, yeah, win tonight, extend that gap, and then maybe you could start saying, yes, we're not safe, but yes, we're looking confident of finishing above Ipswich. But there's a lot of football to go. 2-3 weeks' time, I feel more confident if the gap's the same.
Plenty of correct answers coming in regarding who scored the winner when the Imps last played Ipswich Town at the LNER Stadium. Remember, you can only enter tonight's competition by giving us the correct answer. If you're only just joining us as well, it's an opportunity to win. Got it here. Going to hold it up once more. Brand new Lincoln City women's shirt. Who scored the winner when the Imps played against Ipswich Town at the LNER Stadium? Plenty of correct answers, unsurprisingly, coming through thick and fast. Gary, let's have a look back then at Tuesday, or should I say Saturday even, losing track, afternoon game. Brilliant result against Crewe.
Yeah, it was. I actually thought Crewe were a decent side. They played some relatively nice football. They just lacked that killer edge. They felt to me like a team who are great up to the final third, but then probably not quite well equipped to finish the chances off. But, we needed the win. We needed this. It was a big game. It's taken the pressure off for tonight. And the performance was, I don't normally wax lyrical about the team. I thought we were superb. I thought one or two of the players really put a shift in. Morgan Rogers and Brandon Johnson, too, who have come under some fire from some supporters in recent weeks, were electrifying when they got going.
Michael praised the aggressiveness of the team as well. It's something he's talked a little bit about over the past few weeks. What for him do you think sort of stood out in terms of the aggressiveness from his side?
I think it's the killer instinct. I think it's not just the shooting from range, because look, any fool can shoot from range and miss. And I think in recent weeks we've been quite wasteful from range. But it was just that killer instinct. It was just that we sensed blood, I think, in the second half, and we didn't take off the gas. It could have got really bad for Crewe at one point, especially there. Callum Morton desperately deserved a goal. I think we just looked like a team that were motivated. And let's not forget, before the game, everybody was saying this is defining, are we going to stop a slump? We did. We've stopped the slump, and to a degree, like I say, it takes the pressure off us tonight, or it just puts us back on track if we were to get something at Portman Road. So hugely important in terms of the second sort of half of the season, definitely.
We're going to look back at that Tom Hopper, George Grant-esque pass that he put through to Brennan Johnson there. But what a fine finish that was, by the way, Gary.
Oh, absolutely wonderful finish. And again, I think Brennan Johnson is one player that you've looked at, and if there's one thing that you were desperate for him to improve upon slightly, it is his finishing. He gets in so many good positions. But, when you've got a ball like that, and remember, a pass is as good as the position the player takes up. So Johnson's shown the awareness to get there. Hopper's picked him out superbly, but that's a finish of a man that wanted a goal. And I'm hoping it sparks a run for him. I seem to think he got 4 in 2 games over Christmas. Be nice if he could repeat that.
Pass of the season, I'm thinking George Grant through to Tom Hopper for Wigan, James Jones ahead of Burton Albion, and this one, surely the top 3 candidates, certainly for assists so far of the season.
They're definitely up there. I think one hallmark of Michael Appleton's side is that we've scored some really beautiful goals. We've scored some tremendous efforts, and we've been able to poke them in at the back stick from 2 yards as well. I think if you were asking pass of the season, James Jones against Burton for me was still just was sublime. But isn't it telling that 3 great passes, 3 different players as well? We're not relying on one person for the sublime. So I'm really impressed with how Tom Hopper adapted when he came on Saturday.
You were really impressed once again with Morgan Rogers as well. It was another fine finish. He shows so much composure for such a young player as well.
Yeah, he does. 4 goals for us since he signed. I think anybody signing in January, if you said, look, he's going to score 4 and he'll go on, I think he'll score 7, 8 or 9 by the end of the season. You'd take that in a heartbeat. Not quite sure why I've seen some criticism of him online. I mean, he's had a couple of bad games, as the whole team have. But with Morgan Rogers, there's just this air of unpredictability. And yeah, it doesn't always come off. And I think that's frustrating for a fan when you've got a flair player and it doesn't always come off. But, he dribbles far more than anybody else in the side, even Brennan Johnson. He's very, very direct. He wants to make things happen. Frustrating when it doesn't. But when it comes off and it's something like that, all fans should stand up and applaud.
So we've seen the first goal, we've seen the last goal. Let's just have a look back at the middle goal, if you like, because it was arguably goal of the game in terms of the build-up.
Yeah, it was nice play. In terms of the finish, it's not far off as well. I mean, Conor McGrandles, what a player. Since he's come back, he's been absolutely electric. It's almost like he's gone away and come back with an extra facet. He's just showing us this attacking side of his game that I don't think we saw much of in the first half of the season. It's a lovely take there. He just buys himself a yard or 2. Defender that's in front of him could perhaps have closed him down a little bit quicker. But what a finish. I mean, that is an underrated finish. People talk about Morgan Rogers' goal. They talk about Tom Hopper's pass. All 3 goals, could be this goal of the month. This month could literally just be the Crewe highlights.
Yeah, certainly so. Stuart Wells actually has raised a really good point. He says Alex Palmer assist for Morton last week has to be up there with one of the assists of the season as well. Yeah, I think when it comes to the end of season awards, Stu, I think we're going to have assists as part of them this season because there's been some brilliant candidates, hasn't there? Let's hear now from Adam Jackson. This is what he had to say in his pre-match press conference yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've had a few issues with last few years regarding little niggly injuries and muscle ones. So I think I sort of know my body now well enough where I know if it's manageable or whether I have to take a bit of time off. But luckily this season there's not been many times where I've had to take time off.
It's just kind of instinct, is it? And sort of knowing what feels okay and kind of the limits that you can push it to before you can almost say, that's going to be too far.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Just from knowing how it feels previously when I've done it to now. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it'd have been one where I don't know if it's right, but now I know I can get through it and manage it, so just crack on with it.
And I mentioned to Nigel a few moments ago about how it was a crucial week. It's kind of 6 of the top 8 going head-to-head tomorrow. Is that something that you're aware of in the playing group?
I don't think so. I think we just look at the game. Obviously, we're travelling down today and keeping our focus on tomorrow, really. And then once tomorrow's done, we look to Saturday, just basically keep doing that.
And as for Ipswich, they haven't scored too many goals for a side that are towards the top end of the table. But I wonder what sort of threat their forwards would pose, the likes of Jackson and Norwood. What sort of threats they would pose to you?
Well, like you said, they're both different threats. Especially I've played with Kane Jackson Barnsley a little bit, and I know he's got a lot of pace. So that's one way where he's generally going to be direct and quick at you. So something we'll look at as a back four unit and a full team and how we can counteract against that.
And when there's somebody, you're up against somebody who is quick, how do you sort of go about dealing with that?
A lot of it depends how we set up the team as well. I guess if we're going to press or set off and stuff, and maybe just try and give yourself an extra few yards before the ball's played, try and get there early, or try and get in a better position where you don't have to. It's not a race where it's racing against each other. Just try and get in a position where you're not racing against them.
Yeah, Adam Jackson giving his pre-match thoughts there. Gary, he goes straight to the point, doesn't he, Adam? He's almost speaks the way he defends. No nonsense is what we like from a Lincoln City defender.
Yeah, definitely. I had the pleasure of interviewing Adam a few weeks ago as well, and I got that exact same feeling from him that you've just said there. He's very no nonsense. And I think that also covers his defensive style. And, Steve Thompson once said something that stuck with me, that the very best defenders do three things. They kick it away, they head it away, and if the player's got the ball, they tackle it away. And I think that's Adam Jackson to a T. He's been really impressive for me the last couple of weeks, particularly considering he was meant to miss the game through injury. I think the Fleetwood game, wasn't he? He wasn't even meant to be playing, and he just kind of popped up and put in a great performance as well. So I think we're seeing him grow into the side more and more. And I think, again, he's going to be a huge asset for this football club.
Got about a minute to go till today's Lincoln City team news to face Ipswich Town at Portman Road. Bring you that very shortly. Gary, I know I asked you to pick your starting 11. Don't know if you've got it to hand. If you haven't, I may be putting you right on the spot there. If you haven't, let us know. Give us an overall view of what you expect from tonight's team. Okay,
well, there it is. I have got it to hand. Put me under pressure, but you know what it's like, Sam. I thrive under pressure. I think there'll be a couple of changes. I can see him starting Tom Hopper tonight. I think just for the work rate away from home, Tom put in a great cameo when he came on. I think we'll see Tom and Callum Morton rotate and look at protecting both of them. I think he would have rotated both fullbacks, his Woodley and Bridcut be fit. So I think if Bridcut had been fit, it would be Eden and Aoma at fullback rather than Bramwell and Paul from the other night. But in this instance, I think he'll just bring TJ Aoma in for Regan Paul. And I think Eden will sit at the base of midfield. He impressed me, Teo Eden, on Saturday. Shaky start, maybe first 10 minutes, gave the ball away a little bit. But after that, I thought he was incredibly impressive.
As were you, under pressure, as ever, Gary Hutchinson. Right, it's 6 o'clock, which means one thing and one thing only. It's time for today's Lincoln City team news. So Michael Appleton makes a couple of changes to the side that comfortably beat Crewe at the weekend. It is in full Alex Palmer, TJ Aoma, Adam Jackson, Lewis Monsma and Cohen Bramall making up the back four. Teo Eden is once again in midfield alongside Conor McGrandles and James Jones. The front three then is Rogers, Johnson and Hopper. And I can confirm that Tom Hopper is captain this evening as well. So Gary, I'll bring you straight in. That's the top line, isn't it? Tom Hopper not only starts, but he starts as Lincoln City captain.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Callum Morton had a great game on Tuesday night, and I know he impressed people. But Tom Hopper is our number 9. He wasn't dropped because he isn't a good player. He sat out because he needed a rest. He's certainly one of our most influential players. I think we've got 3 potential captains on there personally, and McGrandles and Jackson as well. But I think that Tom's just edges it. It's going to be a tough evening for him. It's going to be a challenge. But they've got a couple of big burly central defenders, Ipswich. But I think it's more suited to Tom, and then probably Callum's pace with maybe 20, 25 minutes to go.
But what a position to be in, though. The fact that we can now start Tom Hopper, who's been in brilliant form, by the way, but then we know we can bring on someone with the quality of Callum Morton. I mean, it's just a luxury that, simply put, Michael Appleton didn't have 3 weeks ago.
It is. It's a luxury that we're seeing increasingly on the subs bench as well. Theo Archibald impressed me in his short cameo the other night, and I think we'll see more of him in the dire moments of the game. Where Bridcut fit, we've got 2 options on either fullback as well. Obviously, Teo sitting in midfield means that Regan Paul is basically a right-sided defender, so he could come on the centre half if we needed him to. So we have got that flexibility. Real shame to see Harry missing out, not on the bench again. Obviously picked up the injury in warm-up, I think, on Saturday. So that is a little bit of a blow. But, once we get the likes of Howarth and Harry Anderson, Liam Bridgecote, maybe Joe Walsh coming back into the side, we're going to look very, very strong in the final few weeks of the season.
TJ Omer then, back in for Regan Poole. Again, I mean, it sort of emphasises the point that I just made with regards to squad depth. But once again, to have someone with the quality of TJ, who's shown such quality throughout the season, and Regan's looked really good when he's come in, to be able to sort of switch between the two is, again, another really good position to be in.
It is, because I thought Regan Poole played very, very well on Saturday. I mean, everybody did, so it goes without saying, but I thought both Regan Poole and Cohen Bramall had good games. But with TJ, that he understands the patterns of play. He spent most of the season playing with Brennan Johnson ahead of him. He spent a good portion of the early season playing in the little triangles with James Jones on the Grandals when they came across as well. So there's going to be an air of familiarity about it. And I think we're trying to blood Regan Poole to be our right back next season. I think that's a very important point to make. But you can't freeze TJ out altogether, because he's had a superb season. And he is one of probably 7 or 8 players that you could point at and go, outside shout for player of the season. So seeing him come in, it doesn't weaken us at all.
Cohen Bramall as well. We discussed before this show tonight, Gary, that we both thought that Cohen had his strongest game of the season so far on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think he showed a lot of attacking intent. We've seen that in flashes, but I think he's been unfortunate because he's come into games where perhaps we've chased them when he's come on as a substitute, and sometimes he's then been caught chasing the game and we've been caught out a little bit at the back. I mean, he had a really tough debut. Off the top of my head, might be Accrington, but I could be wrong there. So it's been a challenge for him. Some players settle very, very easily. I think Regan Poole has settled easily, but he played League One football before coming here. He understands the pace. Cohen Bramall's been in League Two for a season and a half. But he came in on Saturday. He's got some real pace. He delivers a nice ball as well. He's got a decent end product. I think we'll see him develop into a Harry Toffolo type figure. Might take 6 months in terms of positional awareness and understanding our tactics and approach, but I can see the early signs of why we've signed him now, almost certainly.
Yeah, we'd certainly take a Harry Toffolo figure indeed, wouldn't we? Right, let's get the pre-match thoughts of the manager, Michael Appleton, then. This is what he had to say.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that certainly we did on Saturday, and I'm really, really keen to make sure we do, is just keep the focus on us. And, I've been saying all season about, we've got our little targets that we want to maintain and hit and consistently hit. And, for the majority of the season, we've been doing that, and the focus has been about us. And maybe we sort of lost our focus ever so slightly, and I mean ever so slightly, and started looking at the table and potentially what could be and might be. And Saturday was, there was a lot around the psychological side of the preparation going into Saturday's game. And I think it's one of them where, these are the type of games, and I've said it before, and, if you can't win against the sides around you, it's important not to lose, because they can't sort of gain on you personally. And the fact that obviously, like you've just mentioned, there's 2 other games sort of going on where, teams around us are playing each other. So, they're either going to, all 4 of them pick up a point, or there's going to be 2 of them that are going to get maximum points, but there's also going to be 2 of them that are not going to get any points. So it is an important game. The players are not stupid. They're quite intelligent people. They'll realise that, a really positive result on Tuesday night could go a long way to sort of like giving us the confidence and belief that we need for the remainder of the season.
A lot of Lincoln fans will look at Ipswich away as a game to look forward to, because I think sort of a couple of years ago when Lincoln went there in the FA Cup, it was kind of the game where a lot of Lincoln fans fell back in love with their football club. Did you kind of get that? Have you seen sort of elements of that, and that people look forward to Ipswich as a game to look forward to? Yeah,
a little bit. And to be fair, last season we went there in the FA Cup and were outstanding. And should have won the game comfortably. We ended up drawing, and obviously they're losing the replay back at the LNER. And even in the league game, I thought we were excellent. Goalkeeping error, unfortunately, on the day from Josh Griffiths. Josh Griffiths, what am I on about? But it was a goalkeeping error, and we were we were good for large parts of the game, and we should have took the lead in that game. I remember we had a couple of chances at 0-0, and we should have gone on and sort of took the game to Ipswich, and it never quite happened, and we let them off the hook a little bit. So they'll be in good spirits regardless of their results on Saturday. The reality is they've got a new manager, and they've got top class manager in charge now, and I'm sure they'll be looking to get a home win.
Yeah, Michael Appleton giving his pre-match thoughts there. You can see live pictures coming to you from Portman Road as well, Gary, and it was brought to Michael's attention, wasn't it, that it was the game, or certainly the stadium, where a lot of fans felt like they fell back in love with this football club. And he's not wrong, is he, the journalist that asked that question?
No, he's not. It was a very special day. I think a lot of people had watched the Oldham game on television and sort of become re-energised and thought, hang on, Lincoln City aren't the running joke, which I think a lot of people thought we probably were at one point, let's be fair. But that was the moment, when we walked out there. I remember it clear as day. It was such a phenomenal afternoon. At that point, it just seemed unreal that we would ever be playing Ipswich as equals, because they were a big club. For me, they were an ex-Premier League club, not a Championship club, if that makes sense. They've fallen on hard times. We've done particularly well. But, it's a great stage for football as well. Portman Road is a ground I really liked. It had a good traditional feel. They've got good fans, plenty of them as well. So it's just great for us now to know that matches like this come week in, week out, rather than just be the standout match of a certain season.
Yeah, and the idea of 5,000 fans at an away ground as well. It seemed crazy at the time. I know we've spoken about it a lot over the past few years or so, and rightly so. But now more so than ever, it seems absolutely ridiculous, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it was quite generous on Ipswich's part, remember, because they didn't have to let us have all of those fans. I mean, I think we were the biggest away following they'd had since a friendly with Rangers. I seem to recall them saying beforehand, because they let us have the tickets. They weren't going to fill it for a non-league club coming in the FA Cup. So it was a good opportunity to give us a chance to get as many in as we could. We probably wouldn't get 5,000 now. So it all contributed to a really special atmosphere. And I'm sure any Ipswich fans will tell you it was anything but. Their lowest moment was, at that point, one of our highest moments. But, let's not get lost in history and nostalgia. We have moved on from this. We've done phenomenally well. We've ascended the divisions. We've put a great squad together. We've developed and evolved. This is a great memory now, but it would be wrong to kind of measure all future encounters with Ipswich by this benchmark. Yeah,
absolutely. Just seeing some last moments from this game, and the pictures after as well, with the 5,000 fans as well. But tell you what, let's bring in an Ipswich Town fan now, because we've talked plenty about this game over the past few years as well. It's great to see some of the memories, not necessarily to see that goal. Well, I say that we're hoping to speak to Ipswich Town fan Lee Simons. He's just dropped out, so hopefully he can join us shortly. Gary, what do you remember from this moment? I mean, I'm trying to cast my memory back. Alex Woodyard through 1-on-1, close one.
Yeah, you'd want it to have been anybody else, wouldn't you? And the thing is, he had worked so hard. He was so tired by that point. That you have to be. If you're a non-league side and you go away to a Championship side, and they weren't relegation fodder. This wasn't the year that they came down. All of those players just worked so hard. But it was the Tom Lawrence show for them. What a performance Tom Lawrence put in for them. So happy memories for us, and I'm sure not quite so happy for Lee.
Well, let's hope that we can bring in Lee now. Lee, are you with us? And if so, good to see you.
Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening. How are we all?
Yes, very well, thanks. Thanks for your time. We've talked a lot about that game, so we're going to move the conversation on to the present day and talk about Paul Cook. I mean, you must have felt as if all your Christmases had come at once when they announced Paul Cook as your manager, because he's a top manager. He's one of the EFL's best, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely, because when we had Paul Lambert in charge, it's probably 2 seasons now that we've gone on this barren run, shall we say? In League One, of course, getting relegated from the Championship as well. So we thought we were going to go up last season, but of course, injuries happened, suspensions happened, and then of course, that's football. And of course, we had the COVID as well, so we dropped down to 11th position. We finished in 11th, and of course, this year we started off exactly the same again. But then, because of Paul Lambert and Marcus Evans. That's the only thing we ever talked about. It's not. Plus, the team's performance wasn't great on the pitch. But now, since Paul Cook has come in, great. It's been absolutely a breath of fresh air, really, because he's actually lifted the whole club, the team, the fans. He's just got everything talking at the moment, which is what we want.
Got the pictures of Portman Road here, Lee. What's the realistic target for you this season then? Because myself and Gary were talking at the top of the show, 12 points behind the automatic places. I guess at this stage you would take playoffs with open arms, wouldn't you?
Oh, definitely. Especially when we were looking at the game at Hull City, back in a few weeks ago. If we had lost that game, we would have gone 15th if the games went against us. So, we just had to pull our socks up, and wish they did. Obviously, there was talk about the manager actually coming in at that stage. Of course, a brilliant performance against Hull City, and then we kind of went on a 3-match winning streak. And then, of course, we had a bit of a bump when Paul Cook came in against Gillingham, and we lost 3-1. But he's just he's just come out to the press and said, look, this is a clean slate for everyone. Whatever's been happening with Paul Lambert and the rest of the squad from last time, it's now a clean slate. We start again, and playoffs. He did say automatic promotion. That's what he wanted, but I'll take playoffs at this stage in the moment of this league.
Let's have a look at the Ipswich Town starting 11 this evening then, Lee. We've been through the Imps 11. I don't know if you've had a chance to have a look at them, but this is them. Thomas Holy, Luke Chambers is your captain, Toto Nsiala, James Wilson, former Imp, of course. Miles Kenlock is your left back this evening as well. Andre Dazelle, Flynn Downs, Jack Lancaster, hopefully I've said that right, Teddy Bishop, Gian Edwards and James Norwood as well. So Troy Parrott drops to the bench then. He's played quite a few of your games so far this season, hasn't he? Jackson's on the bench as well. So really, with the likes of Harrop, Jackson and Parrott on the bench and Alan Judge as well, it looks a pretty strong bench from what I can see.
Exactly. You've got Bennett as well, so he's another winger. Josh Harrop's, he's been signed on loan from Preston in the January sales. You got Jackson. He did have a bit of a ruck with Paul Lambert, of course, with John Nolan. So he's just come back into the team as well. So which is good to see. But Troy Parrott, his effort, I have to say, his effort has been 100%. He just needs that goal. I did thought he was going to score against Gillingham at the weekend, but he hit the post with an overhead kick. So, he needs to change it. He needs to look at these players because we do have, I think, 25 players coming out of contract. So I think he wants to look at the players which he hasn't looked at before. Of course, we were starting with the back five, which started against Gillingham. Of course, Dazelle played against Gillingham as well. Flynn Downs has come back in. He has been suspended a few times. He did get sent off a couple of times. Jack Lancaster is a youth player. Plays on either side of the wing. Can play behind Norwood as well. I think they may push Teddy Bishop up to that a cam position. And of course, you got Edwards and Lancaster on the wing. And of course, James Norwood did quite well for Tranmere, but then it's kind of been dogged with injury and hasn't been really fit all season. But he's our top goal scorer with Edwards. I think Norwood's got 6 and Edwards has got 5. So yeah, we're looking to go at you really from the first whistle.
I think Gary might have a question for you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's the obvious question. James Wilson was deemed surplus to requirements whilst we were in League Two. He always looks like he's got a mistake in me to me, as does Nsiala. How's the back four or the back five looking for you?
Well, I said on a previous podcast before on Sunday that we need to change the Thomas Holy because it's more like a League One mid-table team because he makes so many mistakes at the moment. He didn't really try for the first goal against Gillingham, and of course he was a fault for the second goal as well. So we may be looking for a new goalkeeper as well. But James Wilson has been injured. He's started the last 6-7 games. He seemed to be okay since he's come back from injury. But yeah, I feel that we need to keep those players on board. But I feel that Thomas Holy should be sold and get a new goalkeeper in. I think.
John Nolan out for the season as well, it seems, Lee. That's a real blow to you. I know Paul Cook, who we're going to hear from very shortly as well, has been speaking about that. But he's an excellent player, isn't he? You're going to miss him. Yeah,
definitely. I felt because before he came to the team, he was playing for Shrewsbury. He used to play for that cam role, but he normally, for us, he normally plays in the middle with Dazal or Downs or Bishop as well. So I'm quite sad that he's not playing really because he's injured. He's got 2 months, but then of course, as I say, he's out for the season now. So it's a bit of a real shame. I think his contract is up at the end of the season as well. So it's a bit of a shame that he's got the injury really.
Lee, just in a word then, how do you see tonight's game going?
Well, I think Town are going to win 2-1.
There you go. We don't blame you for being optimistic about your own side, especially when you've got a good manager in charge as well, so we'll let you have it. Thanks for your time, Lee. Much appreciated.
No worries, guys. Enjoy the game.
Cheers, Lee.
Thoughts of Lee Simons there. Right, I mentioned Paul Cook. Hopefully, we can hear from him now because these were his pre-match thoughts speaking to the Ipswich Town media team earlier on this week.
But at the end of the day, we've had a really disappointing day on Saturday. So the most important thing now is that we bounce back on Tuesday night in terms of a performance.
Yeah, what are you expecting from Lincoln? A different kind of team to Gillingham, aren't they?
Exactly. Listen, I think there's a couple of teams that have probably surprised people in the division. Michael's Lincoln have certainly done that. They're in the league position they're in on merit. They have a lot of good players. They're a very well set up team. They are obviously coached very well and they all know what jobs they're doing. It's a style of play that I enjoy watching, and within that they've got good players in the system. So we've got our hands full tomorrow night.
And of course, you'll want to start your first home game with a win, won't you?
Just want to start every game with a win. It's football. Do you know, we're in a league position at the minute where there's so much for us to look forward to and there's so much for us to play for. One of the problems with the game on Saturday at 3 o'clock when the game's finished, unfortunately we all feel like the world's about to end and nothing's going to be good. By the time we get to kick-off time tomorrow night, we'll feel probably quite the opposite.
Is that what it's all about, sort of not getting too low, not getting too high?
You don't have time, do you? I think our season this year has been littered with ups and downs. That's just the way the season's been. Do you know, we've had a lot of injuries like everyone else has, and probably with most clubs have a clear path to what they're going to achieve. For us, it's been a little bit case of more when we were top of the league because we go up automatically. When we were in the playoffs, when we've topped out the playoffs, we've had a good little run. So we're a little bit up in the air. What the next few games will probably teach us is exactly where we're at.
Excuse me. Right, that was Paul Lambert giving his pre-match media thoughts. I was just scouring through the Facebook comments to see who's got the right answer with regards to who scored the winning goal against Ipswich Town a few months ago. The correct answer is, of course, George Grant. Your comments have been flying through. I will reveal who's got the Lincoln City women's shirt at the end of the show. But thank you all for your comments with regards to that. Gary, just with regards to Paul Cook then, he's very complimentary about Michael's hard work. Not surprising to see.
No, managers respect each other's craft. I think in any industry, if you see somebody who's good at the job that you do, you have to respect that. And I think Michael is good at the job that he does. And other managers will see that. They see the way we play. They see the means that we have. You know, we're not an Ipswich or a Sunderland or a Hull, with the greatest of respect. We're a Lincoln City. We're probably, you know, in terms of club size, arguably a level or two below one or two of those. But, you know, in terms of league position and performances, we are where we are. We're at this moment in time, we're a better side than Ipswich Town. So it's nice to see managers respecting that. It's nice to see managers pulling out the positive comments. And I'll be honest, on a slightly different track, it's nice to see an Ipswich Town manager with a bit of personality. Because, look, after tonight, I don't mind Ipswich. I think they're a decent side. They made us feel very, very welcome. I would like them to do well, never at our expense. And it's always hard to see fans of a club kind of suffering and struggling. So just to see a manager with a smile on his face and a bit of charisma and personality in a decent club, that makes me smile.
Let me just bring you the Lincoln City starting 11 then. Alex Palmer in goal, TJ Omer, Adam Jackson, Lewis Monsmer and Cohen Bramall. Teo Eden, Conor McGrandles, James Jones, the midfield three. Morgan Rogers, Brennan Johnson and Tom Hopper start up front. Tom Hopper is the captain this evening. It is then Long, Poole, Scully, Archibald, Morton and Rowan. Just a word on Theo Archibald, Gary, because he came on the other day, looked really strong, didn't he? I know he's a player you really rate, but it's so difficult for him to try and force his way into the starting 11 when you're going up against the likes of Morgan Rogers, Brennan Johnson and Tom Hopper.
I think it's always difficult when you're an attacking player on the periphery. Because, if players are doing well and scoring goals, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to drop them. You may rotate. And Rodgers and Johnson are sort of very young players. They're bags and bags of energy. They haven't seemingly needed a rest at all. Archibald's big chance was in that packed little time where we had the EFL Trophy games against the likes of Shrewsbury and Sunderland. And obviously he was injured at that point, so he missed out on that, which is why we saw a little bit of Zach El-Bezedi. I think had Theo not gotten injured, I think we would have seen him against Shrewsbury, would have seen him probably putting in the good performances. What I like about him is direct. He's got nice footwork. I mean, he looked really composed and settled when he came on. He doesn't look out of place in the Lincoln side. He hasn't had a chance to do an awful lot. 1 goal and 1 assist, I think, all season. But he doesn't look out of place. He's a player that I really, really hope earns himself an extended deal at the club, because I think there's a lot more to come from that boy.
Of course, Lincoln City versus Ipswich, Gary, a fixture remembered for the FA Cup exploits, but also remembered for a heck of a game a couple of years ago as well. I'm going to try and bring this in, so do bear with me a second, but 5-3 it was. What a game, Gary. What are your memories of it?
Well, actually, my memories of it are quite stunted because I was suffering from the flu. I had been suffering quite badly for a couple of days, and it was the only home game I missed that season. It was a little bit of a shame, but I had an iFollow pass. I watched it at home. I actually thought this was a turning point, and as it turned out, we had a high squad churn, and it was the last swan song, dare I say, of what was Danny's Lincoln. It was Danny Cowley's Lincoln players, Michael Appleton's Lincoln's philosophy. It was kind of that last, almost like the last supper before we went into the January, before players like Harry Toffolo moved on, before players who we now class as first team regulars like Tom Hopper and that came in. So I think we talk about seminal moments, and we talk about the Ipswich 2-2 and how that was a key moment for me. This was a really big marker in Lincoln City's recent development, really big.
By the way, Gary, what an atmosphere. When you hear it, and I know we're so used to hearing almost empty seats at the LNER Stadium, but for just a few fans in the stadium, obviously directors and members of the playing squad in the Serenity stand. But when you hear the noise of some of these goals, it makes you lick your lips at the idea of going back to the LNER very soon.
Yeah, it does. There was a phenomenal atmosphere. And I think it was one of those crazy games that kind of feeds into the fan atmosphere as well. I think if it's a 2-1, you can make a lot of noise, fair enough. But when the goals are going in like one every couple of minutes and you look like you're going to win the game, and then it swings and it looks like they're coming back into it and the emotions are high, it's so much easier to get invested. And I think Jake Hesketh, correct me if I'm wrong, gets the 5th on the break. And it was just, even in my living room, and missing this was so painful. But even just, it was just almost like you could hear the noise coming from Lincoln here and there. And by the way, what a mad couple of days, because a couple of days after this, we beat Peterborough 2-1. And I was there for George Grant's last minute winner, and that was incredibly noisy as well. It just highlights how much I miss that place.
Yeah. Absolutely. Gary, we've got about 5 minutes left of the show. Let's talk about League One fixtures then. It's a massive night, isn't it? First of all, Peterborough versus Hull. Now, Grant McCann, obviously going back to his old club, he's been speaking this week about the state of the Peterborough pitch. There's a burst pipe or a water leak earlier on in the season, which normally, in fairness to Peterborough United and London Road, they normally play on a pretty good surface. They normally play pretty good football as well. But is that an advantage to the home side when you get you're able to get so used to a pitch like that? Because it's going to be difficult for Hull to go to a stadium like that or a pitch like that and get a result tonight.
Given the state of Hull's pitch in our meetings in January, it'll probably be a home from home for them. I think there's a little bit of mind games there. I think a lot of pitches are cutting up at the moment. Maybe Grant McCann just getting his excuses in early. I'm not so sure. Their pitch isn't great. Hull's pitch isn't great either. It's a huge game. In an ideal world, you probably want somebody to win it and somebody to lose it. I wouldn't be too dismayed if Hull won that game. But I think there's mind games going on. I can see it being a tight game. I'd be surprised if there was a winner over 90 minutes.
In terms of some of the other big fixtures tonight then, Gary, Plymouth playing Wigan. That's a fairly big game as well. Charlton versus Northampton. Northampton obviously had a brilliant result the other day against Portsmouth. As for Portsmouth, 7:45 this evening, that's one of the biggest games in the division without a shadow of a doubt. Portsmouth versus Sunderland. They need a reaction, don't they, Gary?
They do. That's the game for me that signs off 4 competitors for automatic promotion. Because if Sunderland win it, I think you can more or less rule Portsmouth out. I also think if Sunderland win it, Kenny Jackett will be looking for a job come May, because I think they have to be challenging for the automatics. They have to make a late push. From a neutral point of view, it'll be a great encounter because there's lots of history between those two sides. From our point of view, bring it on Portsmouth. Let's get Portsmouth having 3 points and allow us to just hopefully extend that little gap and make it a 3-horse race. And I know people will say I'm ruling out Doncaster Rovers, but there is good reason for that, as we'll look at with their fixture.
Yeah, tell me about your reason for that then, because as we look at the table, Gary, they're 7 points behind second place Peterborough with 2 games in hand. So for Andy Butler, he's looking at that going, no, I wouldn't take playoffs at this stage. I'd take the automatics. You've been looking at the stats. Now, they play Crewe this evening. They travel away to Crewe. Crewe, of course, looking to bounce back from their defeat to us the other day. But they're going pretty well, Doncaster, under Andy Butler. You know, they've won both against Plymouth and Portsmouth. So they'll fancy their chances once again this evening.
They will. They've won against the Plymouth side that let a lot of goals in. We found that. And I know they beat us. If Doncaster fans are watching, hold my hands up. I get that. They played a Portsmouth side who I think are on the slide just naturally. I think that it's a season of evolution for them. And certainly by the end of the season, I think it'll be revolution. With Doncaster, look, you know I like XG. And I know people will criticise that. Expected goals. And Doncaster in the expected goals table. So if instead of taking goals scored, you take the expected goals scored, which is a metric that measures the quality of chances, Doncaster would be 13th in the table. Now, look, you can survive for a season, half a season, by outperforming your XG. But over the long term, if you're a team that is only sort of creating half as many chances as the goals you're scoring, eventually those goals are going to dry up. What you really want is to be high XG, low goals, because you know that you're creating chances and making them come. I think Doncaster will join Portsmouth outside of the playoffs by the end of the season.
Just in a word then, Gary, in terms of tonight's game, how do you see it going?
Draw. In a word, I think we would be really happy to take a point because we won obviously on Saturday. We look ahead to Saturday. That's a game that Michael's going to look at and think we should be winning that. No disrespect to Rochdale, that we should be winning that game. So if you take 7 points from every 3 games between now and the end of the season, we'll be welcoming Nottingham Forest and potentially Newcastle next year. So let's go to Portman Road. We'll be happy with a draw. They've got to come at us. We might just snatch it, but it's one of those games that could go anywhere at all. It's tough to call.
Just finally then, if you've been watching from the start of tonight's Matchday Live, you'll know that we're giving away a brand new Lincoln City women's shirt. The question was who scored the winning goal when the Imps played Ipswich Town at the LNER Stadium around about 4 months ago. The answer, of course, was George Grant. We'll reveal the winner of that shirt after this, but this is a reminder of that game in question. Take a quick look at this.
Tongue that says I'm not done. I push my fingers into plug sockets to feel a buzz. Hold one moment, I'll follow you. Burn the iron way too soon. Something wrong with you, but it's not just a haircut, it's an attitude. There's a taste on my tongue that says I'm not done. I push my fingers into plug sockets to feel the buzz, and I
Yeah, who else but George Grant scoring the winning goal in that game against Ipswich Town 4 months ago at the LNER Stadium. Plenty of you obviously getting the result in question correct. The winner of this, the Lincoln City brand new women's shirt, is Miranda Jones. So Miranda, well done, and we'll get that shirt to you before the end of the season. We'll be in touch. But for everyone commenting and appreciating your comments throughout the show, there's no doubt about that. We'll have some more giveaways throughout the course of this season. Gary, you've gone with a draw tonight, and your record so far is pretty good. So Lincoln fans could do worse than to listen to, once again, another prediction.
Yeah, I hope I'm wrong, Sam. I hope we win, obviously.
Don't we all? Gary Hutchinson, much appreciated. You get your match pass now by going to www.weareimps.com/ifollow. Do enjoy the game this evening. Fingers crossed Imps can get another 3 points and beat Ipswich Town. Bye for now.